Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I want to review the Tygr 300R. Now this headphone is kind of interesting because it's essentially a kind of redesign of their studio headphone as a gaming headphone. And what I mean by that is like they make the DT990, 880, and 770, right? And I've actually tried the DT990 Pro 600 ohm, and that thing had a lot of treble that was kind of like piercing to my ear. And I felt like it was kind of too much treble for me. It was kind of the Beyerdynamic Classic. I've also tried a DT1990, which also had a lot of treble. This headphone definitely has that treble tamed a lot more, and that's done by kind of having these extra foam discs on the inside. And I think that helps making this headphone a lot more kind of usable and withstandable, at least for me, because I felt the other headphones are way too much trouble. And so the design of this headphone is honestly very similar to the prior headphones, and it's really like studio headphone that they kind of tuned for gaming by making it less harsh, which is kind of cool. Anyways, please like and subscribe down below. It really helps my videos out. I'm trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, so any help would be appreciated. I think I'm almost there. And yeah, anyways, let's talk about the build of this headphone, and then we can talk about the sound. All right, so let's talk about the build of this headphone. So I really like the build of the Tygr 300R, and I actually like the way it looks a lot. I think it looks really good, and it feels really premium. So we have this classic Beyerdynamic headband that's actually removable, so you can see that you can actually take this off and swap it out if it ever got kind of old and kind of, worn out. You can replace that. It has these nice yokes, so you can, really extend and push them out and adjust them to the length that you want. So that's always nice. And they're actually really sturdy. They don't really move around as much as like other headphones do. And then we have these cups that are just nice and round, and my ears fit really well into these ear cups. Like I don't really have a problem at all touching top and bottom. So it's very comfortable, and this has a really soft like velour, and it's really like, it's squishy and it's just soft, and I have no problems. And your ears also don't get hot because it's the velour. So that's also the other benefit of that. And overall, this is a really sturdy headphone. I would just throw this in my bag and not have to worry about kind of it breaking. Obviously, the design always lacks this kind of turning motion. It's actually not that bad, as you can see. It actually does kind of move, so it does kind of adjust to your head as well. But it's definitely not its primary kind of design for sure. And then this thing also has a fixed cable, which is a downside for some people as well. But at least the cable, you won't lose it, I guess. And it terminates into a 3.5 millimeter with a 1/4 inch adapter. So you can plug this into like your computer and PC and be fine. If you have kind of more, I guess, pro equipment, you can use it with this as well. So I've been using this with my like DAC amp. That's like $1,000. It's kind of overkill for this, but it provides enough power. Obviously, this headphone doesn't really require that much power. It's 32 ohms. You can run it off your PC, a cell phone, or anything. It'll run fine. So that's a really nice thing about this headphone as well. Overall, this build is very premium. You have nice leather on top, nice big round ear cups, metal yokes right here so it won't break easily, and these cups as well, or I guess they're made of metal as well, so they look really nice, and yeah, it feels nice, and probably one of the better kind of made headphones, especially at this price point. All right, let's talk about sound. So the first thing is this is an open back headphone, and because it's an open back headphone, it kind of projects the sounds kind of wider than normally in a closed back headphone. So it really helps with kind of the sound stage, or like the sense of space you get with this headphone. It's very wide, as well as kind of the directionality, kind of like the placement of this headphone is also really good. So like when you're trying to tell footsteps on your left or right, where the enemy is coming from, this headphone does a very, very good job from that. And I think the thing that illustrates the most is if you compare it to another open back headphone, this is the Sennheiser HD58x. This headphone sounds like all the noise are coming from like right here next to your head. While when you wear the Tygr 300R, the sounds come from around you and they're much more further away, and it gives you a better sense of space. And I think because it gives that better, like bigger sound field around you, when things are coming from, right, left, in front of you, it's much easier to kind of tell where they're coming from. And so the combination of just both of those makes this headphone kind of dramatically better than this headphone, in my opinion. Now, what does this headphone sound like, right? So I would kind of define this headphone as like a V shape, which basically means there has an emphasized bass and it has emphasized treble, so the kind of the higher end, and then kind of the mid-range is kind of scooped out a little bit, so the mids where like footsteps and vocals are kind of a little bit, they sound a little more further away and more distant in my opinion when I listen to this headphone. So let's talk about the bass in more detail. So I feel like the bass of the headphone is kind of elevated. It's nice. It's actually quite entertaining, and I think it has a really nice kind of like feeling to it, so you can really feel the bass. However, the bass doesn't have the deepest sub bass, but a lot of open back headphones don't have good sub bass even at this price point. If you want to get a headphone that has really good sub bass, something like this closed back Shure 840a does it really, really well. Now, when we talk about the mid-range, it's kind of, like I said, kind of set back, scoot back. I feel like that kind of affects kind of I mean, if you're listening to music, vocalists, like male vocalists sound a little further away, female vocalists kind of, they lose a little bit of the body. It's really not that bad, but it kind of sounds a little uneven when I'm listening to it. And I mean, I don't really think it affects your gaming performance, but when you're listening to music, it does sound a little less than natural for me, but it's not like off, like really unnatural. It's just not like 100% there for me. And yeah. So when we move up to the treble, I feel like that's where this headphone benefits, but also slightly has a detriment because like I said earlier, Beyerdynamics are known to have this really kind of high treble emphasis. And this headphone is kind of not different in that regard. Even though I think it's a lot more tame than it was before, I still find the treble to be very detailed. However, sometimes it gets a little harsh. Now, when you're playing games, it's not really something that I notice that much, but when you're listening to like music, it's like in certain music, I feel like it gets kind of like tiring where I'm just like, ooh, I think I gotta take off this headphone for a bit before I get back to listening to it. And I feel like it's not really that bad, but like it still kind of affects me a little bit. So I think it's worth mentioning in this. And I think that's because the treble is a little bit, I think, uneven in the sense of that like the lower treble is like underemphasized, and then the upper treble is more emphasized on this headphone, causing it to be kind of more tiresome to listen to. But like if you compare this to like the 58x, a headphone that kind of has underemphasized treble, this headphone sounds a lot more detailed because it kind of has that region emphasized more. And I feel like that does help a lot when you're playing games as well. And when you're listening to music, it just sounds a little bit more detailed than something like this headphone. And then something like the Shure is kind of the happy medium where the kind of treble is very detailed without being harsh. And like I said, I've been doing some comparisons to these headphones throughout this review, but personally, if I was playing games, I would take this headphone over these two headphones on the table any day of the week, simply because the sense of space and the directionality is so good. But if I was listening to music and I wanted an open back headphone, I do think I kind of like the 58x a little bit more, even though it sounds a little bit less detailed up top than the Tygr. Sometimes I find it just more like smoothing and kind of like, it's just like more safe pick for me. But I think the Tygr 300R is much more fun and engaging type of pick. And I think some people would like this headphone more actually than this one and find this headphone kind of boring. And then compared to the Shure, I think the Shure straight up, it's a closed back headphone, so the sense of space isn't as good, but the kind of tuning of this headphone is just really good. Like if you want to hear what good like bass sounds like, this headphone, vocals are very like present, like footsteps are very like, you can just hear everything. Like everything's really well defined and nothing is kind of ever harsh on this headphone either. So I do think the Shure is a better headphone at the same price point. This comes at 150, this 180. But like I said, if you're playing games, I do think this headphone is still a better gaming headphone. But if you're looking for something that sounds better, I think the Shure does sound better to me. So do I recommend a Tygr 300R? I definitely recommend this headphone for gaming. I think this headphone is really good, especially if you want an open back headphone that kind of helps you with that kind of bigger sense of space and directionality. I think this headphone does that really, really well. Now, when it comes to kind of music enjoyment and listening, I think this headphone also does well. Of course, you got to watch out a little bit because of the emphasis in the treble, but I think it gives it more detail than like a headphone like the 58x. But you know, something like the Shure might be a safer pick and kind of a better response as well. Also, I'm gonna actually try to mod this headphone. So I got a bunch of pads from Tacony to try that out. So you definitely wanna be subscribed to see that. Anyways, please like and subscribe down below. It really helps my videos out. And I'll be making more content, so you wanna subscribe and you don't miss that. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.